Well, it's my pleasure to have with me a panel to talk about this upcoming 2021 Boston Marathon on October 11th of this year. Tom, I want to start with you by asking, how did you land on the 20,000-person in-person field for the fall race?
The key consideration for us in everything, every year, but this year with a spotlight on it, is safety. Safety for runners, for volunteers, for workers, for spectators, and for the public generally. And one of the most important safeguards that has been employed during this pandemic is social distancing. So we looked at how many people we could provide an opportunity to get out to Hopkinton on buses and then run in within the allocated time and still keep them at appropriate social distances. And that was with the good advice of our COVID advisory panel, several members of which are here now. And from that work came the calculation that 20,000 people would be able to participate safely, both for themselves and for others.
I mean, this is such an unprecedented situation. I would open this up to one of the doctors now. When you were coming up with a plan for the 2021 race, what were the principal considerations with respect to the changes that will be made at the start line?
I think really it has to do with how can you keep people safely away from one another? How can you transport them safely to the starting line, wearing masks in buses as we have current guidance for related to transportation, and how can you stagger the race start so that people can maintain those safe distances in a safe outdoor environment.
Was there any way to take spectators into consideration? I mean, that is always the wild card in all this. You can limit the in-person field of runners, you can have people running virtually, but how do you deal with the potential risk that's presented when you have a lot of spectators?
Well, I think right now that's actually an unknown question, which is exactly what the spectators for the race will look like. Obviously, state public health guidance will be paramount, and what the state limits are on gatherings and what the other guidance is will be extremely important. By the time we get to race day, obviously all of us hope that prevalence of disease is much, much lower in Massachusetts, and that the percent of vaccinated individuals in the Commonwealth and around the country, and hopefully even maybe the world, who are spectators, will be going up consistently.
Dr. Baggish and Dr. Blauwet, I would open this up to you. What will be required of runners with respect to proving either that they are negative or that they have been vaccinated? Either one of you can jump in on this first, but I'd be eager to hear from you about the considerations that will go into deciding what requirements are made.
So I can start and just say, along the same vein that Paul just presented the discussion about spectators, a lot of this is a moving target. We very much intend to respond and plan for where we anticipate being October full well, knowing we don't yet know what that looks like. But as it stands now, we have a plan in place whereby testing to confirm negativity before arrival at any marathon events and again on the morning is what we have in place, and the degree to which vaccinations will factor into the need for or obviate a test very much depends on how vaccine strength hold up over the next 6 months.
Yeah, and I just add, Lisa, you know, we know that all of these things are going to change the athlete experience to some extent, but we really do consider it all for the greater good and ensuring that all of our athletes are able to compete in the safest way possible. You know, there are a lot of experiential aspects of running the Boston Marathon. For example, you know, the typical formation of the athlete village at the start line, which we won't be having this year. You know, in favor of the rolling start and safely transporting athletes to the start in waves. And we know that that'll make it a slightly different experience, but we really feel like athletes are going to value above anything else, knowing that they can compete in a safe way.
Tom, we've talked about this in the recent past, but there really is going to be a scramble for elite athletes because all of the world's major marathons are going to be happening within about 6 weeks of one another. How soon do you think we'll know what the field in Boston will look like for the elites?
We'll be prepared to announce it, certainly not later than June. And as you might imagine, discussions with athletes are going on now. And there remains, as there always has been, an allure to the opportunity to win the Boston Marathon. It does stand alone among such events. So I'm confident that we will have a field of professional athletes who are second to none.